My name is George Miller, and for 45 years I worked in the same steel factory. Every morning I woke up before dawn, drank my black coffee in silence, and walked through the thick gray fog to the plant. The machines were loud, the air was thick, and every day felt the same. But I never complained, because I had one dream: to give my son, Ethan, a better life than I ever had. I still remember the night I came home after a double shift. My hands were blistered, my back stiff, but when I saw Ethan waiting for me with his toy truck, I forgot all about the pain. I'd drop to my knees, help him fix the tiny wheels, and tell him, "One day, you'll build something bigger than this, son." Back then, I believed love and hard work could build anything. I worked through storms, sickness, even when my wife passed away far too young. All I had left was Ethan, and every choice I made from that moment on was for him. Every overtime shift, every dollar saved, every dream postponed, all for my boy. When I finally hung up my hard hat for the last time, my coworkers clapped. Some cried. 45 years in one place. They said I deserved rest, peace, and family. As I left the factory gates, holding my final paycheck, I felt proud. I had built something real. Not the steel, not the machines, but a life. And all I wanted now was to share it with the only person who ever mattered, my son. The day I retired, the factory threw a small party for me. Nothing fancy, just coffee, cake, and old friends sharing stories about busted machines and long winters. Someone handed me a gold-colored pocket watch with my name engraved on the back. "For time well spent," it said. I laughed, pretending not to tear up. After 45 years, I was finally free. No alarms at 4 a.m., no clang of metal or burning oil smell. For the first time in my life, I could rest. I packed my few belongings, some clothes, a few photographs, and the worn-out steel lunchbox I'd carried since I was 20. The plan was simple. I'd move in with Ethan, help with the grandkids, and finally live the life I'd worked so hard for. When I arrived at his house, Ethan greeted me at the door with a polite smile, the kind that hides unease. His wife, Natalie, stood behind him, arms crossed, her eyes scanning the suitcase in my hand like I was carrying trouble instead of memories. "Dad," Ethan said, "we're so glad you're here." But his tone didn't match the words. I told him I'd brought gifts, a baseball glove for his son, a puzzle set for his daughter, and for him, the pocket watch I'd received that morning. "For time with your family," I said. He smiled weakly. That night, as I sat on the couch watching the kids play, I felt something strange, a distance in the air. Natalie kept glancing at her phone, sighing when I spoke. Ethan was buried in work emails, half listening. The next morning, I made pancakes for everyone. The smell filled the house like it used to when my wife was alive. But when they came down, Natalie barely touched her plate. "Dad, we usually don't eat heavy breakfasts," Ethan said softly. "Oh," I replied, setting down the spatula. Old habits. Days turned into weeks, and I began noticing little things. How Natalie avoided me in the kitchen, how Ethan spent less time at home. Once, I overheard them arguing behind closed doors. "He's your father, Ethan, not your responsibility. He's got nowhere else to go, Nat." I wanted to pretend I didn't hear, but the words burrowed deep. I tried to stay out of their way. I fixed leaky faucets, trimmed the hedges, helped the kids with homework. I even gave Ethan some of my savings to help with the mortgage. "Just until you get back on your feet," I told him. He hugged me that day. "You're the best, Dad," and I believed him. Every night, I'd sit on the porch with my pocket watch, listening to the soft tick-tick-tick of time, the one thing I thought I'd finally earned. I had no idea that same watch would one day be all I had left. Because soon, Ethan would tell me words no father should ever hear. Words that would break everything I built my entire life for. It didn't happen overnight, the distance between me and my son. It started small, like hairline cracks in a wall that looks solid until one day, it's not. At first, Ethan still called me Dad with warmth in his voice. He'd ask me about old factory stories or laugh at how I still polished my shoes every morning. But as weeks passed, those conversations faded like old paint. The house felt colder, not because of the weather, but because of the silence. Natalie's smiles became shorter, sharper. She'd sigh when I used the wrong coffee mug or when I folded the laundry the old way. Once she found me watching TV with the kids and said, "Maybe let them focus on their schoolwork, okay?" Her tone wasn't rude, it was careful. Too careful. Like she was choosing words to keep the peace while making sure I knew my place. Ethan tried to balance things, but I could see it. The pressure building behind his eyes. Every night he'd come home late, loosen his tie, and collapse on the couch without saying much. When I'd ask how work was, he'd mumble, "Fine, Dad, just busy." I started cooking dinner to help out. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, meals I used to make when he was little. But no one touched the food much anymore. "Thanks, Dad, but we already ordered something," Ethan said one evening, not even looking at me. The smell of takeout filled the kitchen, mixing with my home-cooked meal. And I felt something in me quietly break. One night, as I passed by their bedroom door, I heard voices. "He's always around, Ethan," Natalie whispered. "He's my father," Ethan replied. "I know, but this isn't what we agreed on. We have our own life now." I froze. My hand gripped the hallway wall to steady myself. I didn't want to hear more, but I couldn't move. "I just need time," Ethan said softly. "Time?" she replied. "He's retired, Ethan. He's not going anywhere." That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how I became a burden in the house I once dreamed of growing old in. The next morning, I packed my things quietly. Not to leave, but to make it easier for them. I moved into the small room in the back of the house, near the laundry area. It smelled of detergent and dust, but it was quiet, peaceful even. I started helping less. No more pancakes. No more advice. I stayed in my corner, pretending not to notice how they avoided eye contact. The grandkids still came to me sometimes, their small hands tugging at my sleeve, asking for stories. I told them how their father used to climb trees barefoot, or how we once fixed a leaky roof together during a storm. They laughed, but when Natalie saw them in my room, she'd call them away gently. "Come on, sweethearts, let Grandpa rest." Rest. That word used to mean peace. Now, it sounded like disappear. One afternoon, as I was dusting the shelves, I found an old photograph of Ethan, 5 years old, covered in mud, grinning wide because he'd just helped me plant a tree. I kept that photo in my wallet for 40 years. That tree now stood tall in the backyard of this very house. But every time I looked at it from the window, I felt like the roots were deeper than mine. The cold welcome had turned into quiet rejection. And though no one said it aloud, I could feel it in the air. I wasn't part of this home anymore. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning. The kind where the world feels peaceful, like it's taking a breath before another week begins. I was sitting on the porch, reading the newspaper, the same way I had for decades. The sun was warm on my face. For a moment I felt content. Then Ethan came out with his phone in hand, his face pale and tight. "Dad, can we talk?" Those 4 words, "Can we talk?" have never led to anything good. I folded the paper slowly. "Sure, son. What's wrong?" He sat down beside me, but not too close. His fingers drummed nervously on his knee. "Dad, there's no easy way to say this. We sold the house." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "Sold the house? What are you talking about?" "It's been hard keeping up with the mortgage," he said quickly, avoiding my eyes. "Natalie found a buyer. We're moving next week." I felt the world tilt. The porch, the trees, the very air around me seemed to fade into static. "You sold the house?" I whispered. "Ethan, this is my house. I built it. Every brick, every nail, every inch." "I know, Dad," he cut in, his voice cracking. "But technically, it was under my name after you retired, remember? We agreed it'd make things easier with the taxes and inheritance." I stared at him, realization sinking like ice in my chest. "I trusted you with the papers because you're my son, not because I meant to give you everything." He swallowed hard. "You'll get your share. We're not leaving you with nothing." I laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "My share? Ethan, I didn't work 45 years in that factory to get a share of what I built for you. I built it for us." Natalie stepped onto the porch then, arms folded, expression firm. "We'll make sure you're taken care of, Mr. Hutchins. Maybe a small apartment nearby." Mr. Hutchins, not Dad, not even Dad-in-law. That was the moment I realized they'd already cut me out long before today. I walked inside, every step heavier than the last. The walls I had painted, the floors I had polished, all whispered with memories. Ethan's first steps in the hallway, his laughter echoing when we fixed the leaky roof together. His mother's favorite photo still hung by the stairs, the one I never took down after she passed. I stopped at that photo and stared at it for a long time. "You'd be ashamed, Margaret," I whispered. "Our boy!" He forgot. That night I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Ethan knocked once to check on me, but I didn't answer. I sat in the dark, clutching that old photo from my wallet. Ethan's muddy grin from years ago. The boy in that photo would have given me the shirt off his back. The man he became just took the roof from over my head. The next morning, a moving truck pulled into the driveway. Strangers walked through the house, measuring, pointing, talking in fast voices about remodeling. I stood there, invisible in my own home. By evening, I packed what little I had left. 2 bags, my tools, and the old photo. Ethan offered me a small envelope. Dad, there's some money in here. Enough to get you started. I looked at the envelope. Then at him. I started a long time ago, son, I said softly. You just ended it. And I walked away without looking back. The house that once echoed with laughter now stood behind me. Silent, empty, and no longer mine. The first night in my new room was the quietest night of my life. And somehow the loudest inside my head. The place was small. 1 window, a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The kind of room you rent by the month, not by choice, but because it's all you can afford. The air smelled faintly of damp wood and old paint. My bed creaked every time I moved. But it wasn't the room that hurt. It was the silence. For 45 years, my life had been filled with noise. The hum of machines at the factory, Margaret humming while she cooked, Ethan's laughter echoing in the backyard. Now the only sound was the tick of an old clock on the wall, counting every second of my solitude. The first week I woke up early out of habit. 5:30 a.m. sharp. My hands still twitched, as if ready to grab my lunch pail and head to work. But there was nowhere to go. No one waiting for me. I'd boil water for tea, stare out the window, and watch strangers walk by. Families, couples, kids with backpacks, all living the life I used to dream of. I'd visit the park sometimes, sit on the same bench every afternoon. I'd watch fathers teaching their kids to ride bikes, and it would tear something deep inside me. I'd smile at them, pretending to be fine, pretending I didn't ache. My meals became simpler. Canned soup, bread, whatever the small pension could buy. I sold my old tools, the same ones that built my house, just to make rent. Each sale felt like erasing a piece of who I was. The landlady, Mrs. Green, was kind in her own way. She'd bring me leftover pie and ask how I was doing. I'd smile and say, fine. Always fine. Because saying lonely out loud made it real. Sometimes I'd pull out that old photo album I managed to keep. Margaret's face, Ethan as a baby, birthdays, holidays, frozen moments that used to mean something. Now they felt like stories that belonged to someone else. One night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the window, watching the streetlights flicker. My reflection stared back at me, older, smaller, worn out. I whispered into the dark, was I really useless, Ethan? Or did you just forget who I was? I remembered the day I taught him how to hammer his first nail, how he looked up at me with wide eyes and said, Dad, when I grow up, I want to build things just like you. I believed him. I built everything for him. The home, the memories, the future. And yet, here I was, sitting in a room built by strangers, surrounded by walls that held no laughter, no love, no purpose. But even then, a small part of me refused to give up. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was hope. I started helping Mrs. Green around the building, fixing pipes, repainting doors, patching walls. She paid me a little, but I didn't do it for the money. I did it because it reminded me that I still could, that even if my son didn't need me anymore, the world still might. Sometimes I'd help a neighbor carry groceries or fix a broken step for free. Little by little, the loneliness didn't go away, but it began to hurt less. And in those quiet moments, I found something unexpected, a strange kind of peace. Because even when everything's been taken from you, there's still one thing no one can steal, the choice to keep standing. It had been nearly 5 years since Ethan last looked me in the eyes. 5 years of silence, 5 birthdays missed, and not a single letter, call, or visit. I thought maybe that was how my story would end. In quiet acceptance, drifting through my days with memories of a son who once called me his hero. But life has a strange way of bringing back what you thought was gone. It was a Tuesday morning when Mrs. Green knocked on my door, holding the local paper. Her face looked pale. You might want to read this, she said softly, and handed it to me. Right there. In bold letters on the front page, I saw his name, Ethan Miller, former real estate developer, files for bankruptcy after lawsuit. For a moment, I just stared. The words didn't make sense. Ethan? The man who once wore $1,000 suits and drove luxury cars? The one who sold my house and told me I was useless? The article said he'd lost everything. His business collapsed after his partner ran off with client money. His wife had filed for divorce 2 months earlier. Their house was foreclosed. The same house he bought with the money he stole from me. I folded the paper, set it down on the table, and just sat there. My hands were trembling, not from anger but something deeper. Pity? Sadness? Maybe both. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the day he'd thrown me out, the way he said, Dad, you'll be fine. You've always figured things out. Now he was the one who had nothing. And despite everything he'd done, my heart ached for him. Over the next few days, bits of gossip spread around town. People said Ethan was living in a small apartment downtown. Others said he was drinking heavily, trying to drown his shame. Some said he couldn't find work because his name was all over the news. One afternoon, I walked past the park and saw a man sitting on the same bench I used to sit on, his shoulders hunched, his hands covering his face. It wasn't Ethan, but something about that image hit me hard. I had been that man once, and now my son was walking the same road. It's strange. When you're young, you think your parents are unbreakable. You believe they'll always be there to fix everything. But what no one tells you is that parents are human too, and when they break, the world goes quiet. That week, I found myself praying. Something I hadn't done in a long time. Lord, keep him safe, I whispered. Even if he doesn't deserve it. Please, don't let him fall too far. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It was something in between, a father's instinct that never really dies. Even when love turns to scars. The next morning, I looked at the old photo of Ethan on my nightstand. Him at age 8, sitting on my shoulders, laughing. His hands tangled in my hair. I ran my fingers over the photo and said quietly, "You're still my boy, even if you forgot." And maybe that's when I realized pain and love come from the same place. You can't have one without the other, because no matter how far he'd fallen, I'd already been there first. And maybe, just maybe, life was giving him a taste of what I went through. Not as punishment, but as a lesson. And somewhere deep down, I prayed that he'd learn it before it was too late. It was a cold night in early November, when the rain started pounding against the windows like it was trying to get in. I had just finished a simple dinner, soup from a can, bread from yesterday, and was settling into my worn-out armchair to watch the 9 o'clock news. The sound of the storm outside was oddly comforting. It reminded me I wasn't the only one weathering something tonight. Then came the knock. 3 slow, heavy knocks that didn't belong to a stranger. I froze. Visitors were rare for me. Most days, the only people I saw were the mailman and Mrs. Green from next door who sometimes brought me leftover pie. I turned down the TV volume, waiting, hoping maybe I imagined it. Then, knock, knock, knock again, louder this time. I got up slowly, my knees aching the way they always did when it rained. My heart started to pound as I reached the door. Something in me already knew who it was before I even turned the handle. When I opened it, the wind pushed in first. Cold, wet, full of November's bitterness. Then I saw him. Ethan. He looked nothing like the man who'd once thrown me out of my own home. His clothes were soaked, clinging to him like paper. His eyes were sunken, his face hollow. His hands trembled as he clutched a small backpack, the same way a lost child clings to something familiar. "Dad." His voice cracked. He swallowed hard, staring at the floor like he couldn't bear to meet my eyes. I didn't know where else to go. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the rain and the faint hum of the fridge behind me. He looked up then, his eyes red and tired. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I messed everything up. I lost the house, my job. Even Emily left. I don't have anyone anymore." I wanted to say something, anything, but words wouldn't come. Every memory of him, every sacrifice, every betrayal crashed over me like that storm outside. The night he sold my house. The day he told me I was useless. The long, lonely years after. He wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said quietly. I didn't know where else to go." There was a time I would have rushed forward, wrapped him in my arms, told him everything would be okay. But now, I just stood there, gripping the doorframe to keep from falling apart. "Dad," he said again, softer this time. "Please, I don't even have a coat dry enough to sleep in. Just let me stay the night. I'll leave in the morning. I swear." The words hit me deep, twisting something inside that I'd spent years trying to bury. My son, the boy I'd once taught to fish, the boy I'd carried on my shoulders, was now standing in front of me, broken and desperate. For a moment, I saw flashes him as a child laughing in the backyard, riding his bike for the first time, the day he graduated college and hugged me tight. Then those memories shattered, replaced by the day he threw me out. I wanted to open the door wider. I wanted to let him in, but I also wanted to protect what little peace I had left. The rain poured harder. Ethan looked smaller by the second, like life itself was washing him away. "Finally," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, I need time." He nodded slowly, understanding more than I expected. "I'll be around," he said. Then he turned, stepped into the rain, and walked away. The door closed with a soft click, but the sound echoed through my chest like thunder. And that night, for the first time in years, I cried for both of us. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, soaked, trembling, standing in the rain like a man who'd lost everything that ever mattered. My mind kept replaying his words. I didn't know where else to go. The next morning I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Outside the rain had stopped, but the world still felt gray. The old clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second pushing me closer to a choice I didn't want to make. Do I open the door again? Or do I finally keep it closed? For years I dreamed of this day. The day he'd realize what he'd done. I imagined him feeling the same emptiness I felt when he turned his back on me. I thought that would make me feel whole again. But sitting there in that silence, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. When you get old, revenge doesn't warm your heart. It just burns the last pieces of it. I walked to the window. The street was empty, wet, reflecting the pale light of morning. No sign of Ethan. Maybe he'd gone to a shelter, maybe to a friend. Maybe he was still out there, wandering. I didn't know. I picked up the pocket watch from my table, the same one the factory gave me on my last day. I ran my thumb over the engraving, for time well spent. I thought about all the years I'd spent building a life for him. The scraped hands, the broken back, the long shifts, the empty holidays. I didn't regret a second of it. I only regretted how it ended. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Dad, I'm sorry for everything. You were right. Money doesn't mean anything when you have no one to share it with. I just needed you to know that. I stared at the message for a long time. My chest ached, not from anger, but from something heavier. Love that never truly left, even when everything else did. That evening, there was another knock. Softer this time. Hesitant. I opened the door, and there he was again. Ethan. Still wearing the same clothes, still drenched from the drizzle outside. His eyes looked emptier than before. I slept in the park last night, he said quietly. I just wanted to say goodbye in person. You don't owe me anything, Dad. He turned to leave. And for a moment, I almost called out his name. My throat tightened, but the words didn't come. Then I remembered something my late wife once told me. Sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about letting go. So I took a deep breath, stepped outside, and placed the pocket watch in his hand. You'll need this more than I do, I said softly. He looked down at it, confused, then met my eyes. For the first time in years, there was no pride or anger between us, just two broken men who'd finally run out of time. He nodded slowly, tears filling his eyes. Thank you, Dad, I smiled faintly. Goodbye, son. He turned and walked down the street, the ticking of the watch fading into the distance. When I went back inside, I closed the door gently, this time not out of hate, but out of peace, because I finally understood. Forgiveness doesn't always mean opening the door again. Sometimes it means knowing when to close it for good. Weeks passed after that night, and the house felt quieter than ever. I used to hate silence, but now it felt like an old friend, one that didn't judge or ask questions. Every morning, I'd sit by the window with my coffee, watching the sun rise through the thin lace curtains, and wonder if Ethan had found a place to sleep that wasn't under the open sky. I never heard from him again. No calls, no texts, just silence. At first, that silence tore through me like a knife. Every knock at a neighbor's door made me flinch. Every unfamiliar voice outside made my heart race. I'd find myself standing by the window at dusk, half expecting him to appear on the sidewalk again. But he never did. I told myself I did the right thing, that closing that door was what I needed to protect what little peace I had left. But in the quiet hours of the night, when the clock ticked too loud and the loneliness crept in, I'd whisper a prayer for him. Keep him safe, Lord. Let him find his way back to himself. Sometimes I'd walk to the park where I used to take him as a boy. The swing set was still there, old and rusted. I'd sit on the bench where his mother used to pack us sandwiches and watch him run barefoot through the grass. I'd close my eyes and hear his laughter again, pure, full of life, untouched by greed or bitterness. And I'd wonder when exactly that little boy had turned into the man who sold his father's home. People think the worst pain a parent can feel is losing a child. But I've learned it's not the loss itself. It's watching your child lose themselves while you're still alive to see it. Still, I can't hate him. I don't think any parent truly can. Some nights, I replay that moment at the door in my mind. Him standing there, wet and broken, asking for a chance. And me, standing in the doorway, heart torn between love and the need to protect it. If I could go back, I'm not sure I'd do anything differently. I didn't close that door out of spite. I did it because some lessons in life can't be taught through comfort, only through consequence. I keep the memories alive in small ways. His old baseball glove still sits on the shelf. The photo of us fishing at the lake stays by my bedside. Every morning, I still make 2 cups of coffee. One for me, one for him. Habit, I guess. Sometimes, when I sit by the window and the breeze drifts through the curtains, I imagine it's him. Older now, wiser, walking somewhere far away, finally at peace with himself. And that thought gives me comfort. Because deep down, I know that love doesn't die when you close the door. It lingers in the quiet, in the prayers, in the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll find their way back one day. I may never see my son again. But every night before I sleep, I whisper the same words. I forgive you, Ethan. I just hope one day, you'll forgive yourself. And in that moment, I feel something I haven't felt in years. Not sadness, not anger, but peace. Because I finally understand, letting go doesn't mean you stop loving someone. It means you start loving yourself enough to move on. You know, when you reach a certain age, you start to see life differently. You realize that money, property, or even gratitude, none of it lasts forever. But the way people treat you, that stays. The words they say, the choices they make, the respect they give or take, those are what echo in your heart long after they're gone. I spent my whole life working for others, for my company, for my family. I missed birthdays, I skipped meals, I pushed my body until it broke, just to make sure my son would have the life I never did. And for a long time, I thought that was love. But love isn't about how much you give, it's about how much you're valued while giving it. To every parent listening, don't let your kindness become your weakness. Don't let your sacrifices be mistaken for obligations. You deserve respect, not pity. You deserve peace, not silence. And if one day, those you love turn their backs on you, remember, that doesn't erase the years you gave them. It only reveals who they truly are. I don't hate my son. I never will. Because forgiveness isn't a gift for them. It's freedom for you. We can't rewrite the past, but we can choose how it ends. And I choose peace. So to anyone out there feeling forgotten, hold your head high. You gave love. You gave time. You gave everything. And that makes you rich, far richer than those who took it for granted.